Hi everyone, and welcome to Tech Talks. Our IT edition today is part 2 of this month's talks, once again focused on getting started with IT service intelligence. Tech Talks is a series of short webinars that are deep dives for technical practitioners. We value you, our customer, and want to help you continue in your Splunk journey. Our experts help create these best practices, and we want you to leverage them in your daily role. Before we jump in, I did want to remind you that we have a Q&A widget on your screen where we'll be available to answer your questions. My name is Caitlin Reynolds, and I'm a Product Marketing Manager here at Splunk. I'm joined today by my colleague, Mark. Thanks for joining us again, Mark.
Thank you, Caitlin. My name is Mark Series. I have been with Splunk for just over 4 years in a consultant solution engineer's role. My focus today is very much around IT operations. I've been doing this for 15 years, so hopefully I know what I'm talking about. So let's look at the agenda for today. So in the agenda today, we'll be diving into the problem that all organizations continue to experience. We'll be reviewing what is meant by the term event analytics. I will highlight some of the common terminology so that we're all speaking the same language. And then we'll investigate how Splunk IT Service Intelligence Event Analytics capabilities will help you find the needle in the haystack, or even multiple haystacks. I will cover how all the capabilities can reduce the noise and reduce the time to resolve incidents. And then it will be demo time, where I will show you how to build all of this. This slide depicts the complexity of modern IT, the difficult task of service assurance. This problem has been around for over 10 years, and yet there's still too many tools creating siloed teams. All of these teams have to understand the daily flood of events that leads to long times to resolve issues. And these tools have their own language, so it's very difficult to correlate. Ultimately, your organization is there to provide a service, and IT are there to support this function. Events can come from application and infrastructure layers. In fact, they can come from anywhere. Understanding and reacting to this event noise is critical to the health of a business service. However, as we know, when things go wrong with the infrastructure layer, the application layer is affected, and this in turn will impact the business layer. This is normally seen in service degradation or poor customer satisfaction, and brand reputation is damaged, and this can lead to a loss of revenue ultimately. So if this problem has been around for a long time, why is it still not resolved? Let's see how IT Service Intelligence Event Analytics can help. The IT Service Intelligence solution provides 2 use cases. Our first tech talk in this series introduces building a service, KPIs, and a tour of how we can visualize that data from a service-centric lens. Today we will be focusing on IT Service Intelligence Event Analytics capabilities. These are how you can normalize and correlate events, not just Splunk and not just technical KPIs, to remove the monitoring gaps. We will see how to enrich events with additional service context to understand the urgency. We will use machine learning to reduce that noise and the reliance on tribal knowledge in your organization. We will then walk through the event lifecycle of our episode review. It's worth showing this slide to highlight the different languages that are involved with event analytics. So the key points from this are that alerts and alarms are generated when there's a state change. Things like when your server is up or down, or if it's saying the file system is full. Splunk can also ingest all types of data and turn them into events. This includes traditional alarms and alerts, but as well as that, log data, metrics, and wire data, etc. Correlation searches are just a Splunk search that allows you to detect a pattern in your time series events. Notable events are generated from correlation searches. These are represented by actionable alerts, intended for future analysis and investigation. Aggregation policies are using machine learning algorithms to cluster and produce notable events based on similarities in episodes. They reduce the noise and detect patterns in events, so you don't have to. And episodes are groups of notable events that often occur as part of a larger sequence. Most organizations have data all over the place. We can collect all the raw data. This breaks down the silos and closes the gap. We have the ability to correlate multiple data sources. We can do real-time clustering and aggregation policies that utilize machine learning to find what's humanly impossible to see. We can bring in the service context to understand the business impact of an event, and we can also look for outliers. So how do we put this all together? We will go through the 3 stages identified above here, and this will be covered in the demo. But ultimately, we will have data coming in to Splunk's platform, and we're going to correlate that data from anywhere, and then we're going to apply some aggregation policies, and then we're going to review that in the episode review screen. And then, as we see on the arrowhead, we're going to take some custom actions on that. So it's now demo time. The demonstration, as I say, will be really focused around the episode review screen. To get to the episode review screen, we're going to start the demo on the Service Analyzer view.
The Service Analyzer view is where we can see the overall health of our business application. In this instance, we can see Buttercup Store is having a few issues. If I click on the top level, I can see that revenue and successful checkouts is being impacted by this issue, and I can see my eyes drawn to the on-prem database. So that's probably where the root cause is, but for this investigation we're going to start off with the cart services, and we can see there's an exclamation mark there, which means we have a lot of episodes associated with cart services, and we can see a summary here, and I can acknowledge them here. However, I'm going to go to the episode review screen, and what this will show me is all of my events, and we're going to drill down on this visualization. So at the moment we can see we've got 3,400 events appearing over the last 24 hours, and I'm currently sorting by severities. This is kind of like the event manager screen that your IT operations team may be looking at right now, with a sea of red, lots of events, and really difficult to make any investigations, because where do you start with 3,000 events? So let's add some filtering. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is filter on severity. Now typically I would not want to see anything to do with informational or normal events, so I'm going to filter those out. So immediately we can see we're now down to 1,900 events, and I can continue adding a filter. So I'm going to add another filter, and that is going to be filtering on just the cart services, because that's all I'm interested in, that's my responsibility. And we can see now we've got 1,800 events. Now I might want to give this a bit of a name, so let's say Mark's View, and it's cart events. I can give that visualization a name, and what I can now do is say, right, okay, well 1,800 is not really going to help me any more than 3,500. I've still got an awful lot of events to look through. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the options of this screen, and I'm going to enable the episode view. Now what episode view is doing here is it's applying an aggregation policy, and it will use that aggregation policy. We'll use machine learning, we're going to cover that in a little while, to group these events. So you can see now, instead of 3,500 or 1,800, I've now got 46 episodes to investigate. And we can see here there's only a few that really I need to investigate that are high. If I scroll down, there's probably some medium ones at the bottom there. So it gives me a really clear visualization where to go and investigate for the cart services. And we're going to come back to that screen, but for this instance I'm just going to save that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it Mark's View of Cart Events. And if you wanted to, you can build lots and lots of different views for different people and different use cases. So you may want to just look at the events by severity or by groups, or just have a look at all the events and then filter it down to whatever makes sense for whatever responsibility you have. Okay, so that's our introduction to our episode review screen. We're going to come back to that later on, but for now I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how we build a correlation wall. So if you remember in the introduction, I talked about the most important part is to correlate multiple data sources. It doesn't have to be Splunk, it could be multiple sources, things like New Relic, AppDynamics, whatever your solutions out there. We can ingest that data and we can correlate that down. So let's go and have a look how we actually correlate that down. So for this instance, I've got a dashboard that I built just for this tech talk. Okay, and this is for adding Nagios events. So the first thing we do is we're going to do some SPL, so Splunk Processing Language. We're going to do a index equals ITSI demo, because that's where my data resides. We're going to filter down on source type equals Nagios, and we're going to have the perf data defined as well. So this is just a sample data that we're going to be just working through today. Okay, so once we've reviewed that, we're going to click on step 2. So step 2 is all around normalizing the fields. So we can see here the data's come in, and if you think about App Dynamics, New Relic, and any other domain managers there, they all, whatever the vendor out there, the severity field will be called something different in each of those domain managers or best of breed solutions that you may have deployed. So what we want to do is the first stage is to normalize that data and make sure that the data is normalized. And we can see here we've got the severity normalized. So once we've done that, the next step will be to deduplicate that data so we don't have repetitive events. So again, we've got the dedupe command in here, which hopefully you're all familiar with, and that reduces the amount of events down, and we normally get a total on the right hand side. If I carry on going, the next step is obviously, as we talked about in the introduction, when you get events flooding into your environment, it's really difficult. If you take the analogy of my house is on fire and the fire engine has to come and put the fire out, it's much easier if the fire engine can see where the fire is and what room it is. And the same goes for events. If you don't have service context, how do you understand the importance of that event in correlation to your business? If it's part of your dev and your non-prod environment, it doesn't matter so much as your web front end, which is your face to the customers. So service context is really important. So in this instance, all we're doing here is we're doing an entity lookup based on the host to go and get the service name that these events fall into. And again, the service tree and the events service context can be ingested through integrations with your ticketing system, so you can ingest CMDB information or CI information directly from your ticketing information. So now we've got that, we can have a look at this full search. So I'm going to just open that up. Okay, we can now see the full search here. I'm going to lift all of that SPL, so I'm just going to copy that right now. And what I'm going to do now is go and actually build the correlation search, because we've got the criteria effectively, what we want to correlate. So let's go and do that. So we're going to go down to the configuration menu and correlation searches. And in here we can do two things here. We first, on Tech Talk 1, we talked about creating multi-KPI alerts using the wizard. But what we're going to do is today is we're going to create correlation searches using a search. And we've already got that search, so we're just going to paste that search in there. And what we can do is we can give it a title. So I'm just going to call it Nagios Events. And we can decide how many times this is going to execute. So I'm going to suggest it executes every 5 minutes. It depends on what you're correlating. Obviously, you don't want to do the correlation search if your data is not changing. So it's different for every environment. So we're going to give it a title. So in this instance, I'm going to call it Nagios Service Check. And what I can do is I can pass through any of the fields that I've built the correlation on. So in this instance, I'm going to pass through the name, and I'm going to pass through the entity title. Ooh. Title, because that's right. Okay, now moving down here, I can see that at the moment, anything that is created for this aggregation group will get a severity of informational. Now I don't want that, because I don't want to hard code the severity. What I actually want to do is get the severity picked up again from the correlation search. So there is a field in the correlation search called norm severity, and you can see that in the correlation search here, just there where we created that field. Okay, and we're just passing and using that field to base the severity. And the last thing I'm going to show on this screen for the correlation search build is the ability to drill down. So in this instance, I'm going to have the ability to drill down into service alerts. So again, I can run any SPL. So in this instance, I'm just going to do again the index ITSI demo, and the source type is going to be equal to Nagios. And then again, I'm going to restrict the actual data I'm interested in to, pardon me, to perf data, and that's going to equal the service perf data. Okay, so again, what I'm doing here is once you've got your correlation group, you can actually click through and see some more information here. And there's a few other bits and pieces I can do. But for this instance, I'm just going to save that correlation search. Now I've built that correlation search, I can enable by default that correlation search. However, there, you could go and have a look in your environment at the other correlation searches that you may have out of the box. However, I suggest you look at Splunk Answers. The community out there have got lots of integrations already built and correlation searches built. So, the first stage is probably have a look at that website and see if anything you want to do has already been built. So that's how you build the correlation search. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at the aggregation policy. So the aggregation policy is what drives that grouping. So if we come down here into configuration menu and have a look at notable events aggregation policy, if you remember from the introduction, there's several capabilities around aggregation. So in this instance, I'm just going to review the service issues aggregation. Okay, and we can see here the first thing our eyes are drawn to is the filter criteria box, and what this is doing is specifying, okay, any events have got a severity that is greater than normal, include, any service name that's been populated, include. So run this aggregation policy on those events. And obviously I can build really complex or and ands criteria on there. So I'm going to leave it at that. The next step is smart mode grouping. So I'm going to click smart mode grouping on. Now what I'm doing here is enabling a little bit of machine learning. So I'm going to select the fields that I'm interested in. So this is going to go back over the last 24 hours, and it's going to give me a couple of fields that it's suggesting to use. I'm not going to take the guided one. I'm going to select the ones I know that I'm working in this environment for this demo. So I'm going to go and select norm instance and norm severity. And the reason why I'm selecting those is because I know most of my data has that fields in there. So 92% of my data has those fields. That's probably worth doing that. So I'm going to hit apply, and I'm going to preview the results. So that's executing that machine learning. And whilst that machine learning is running, I can go through some of these options. So on the left-hand side, we can see text similarities. So text similarity is aligning the machine learning. So you're guiding the machine learning around text and category. So we can fine-tune it if you like. And we can also break up the service. So we can say, well, actually, we're only interested in specific parts of the service or specific entities. And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but we can split the fields and break the episodes in multiple ways. So it's really, really flexible and customizable. And we can see here that it's identified some groupings, so we can go and have an investigate those if we wanted to. And we can actually launch into the search and have a look to see how that grouping is done. Okay. So the next step I wanted to show you was the action rules. So what we've done there is effectively we've created notable episodes or events, alerts. But what I want to do is actually be proactive and make action rules based on there. So action rules are, at the moment, what this is doing is it's breaking the group up, or it's doing a severity check, for example. So I could add a rule here and say, well, actually change anything in here to a medium, because I know this environment is whatever, non-prod environment. But quite rightly so that I could actually, kick off an action. The action could be, run a script to go and get some more information, maybe ping the host, raise a ticket, whatever it is. It's really flexible in that sense. Okay, so this is the aggregation policy. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what the aggregation policy does now. So we go back to our episode review screen, and you can see here I'm looking at all episodes at the moment over the last 24 hours, and it's grouping them. So I've got 52 episodes or event groups. And we can see here some event groups associated with my service tree. Okay, and I'm going to go down here and have a look at cart services. There's cart management issues. Okay, because that's the one we're focusing on today. And I can click on there and I can see that it's affecting cart management, but it's also affecting the authorization service. And I can see in my business tree where it's affecting. And I can go along and have a look at the event timelines. Now the event timelines is highlighting when things happen in that event group, effectively, okay, or episode. And we can see, you know, there's New Relic API calls, there's some SolarWinds, there's a mix of technologies in this alert group, okay. And what I want to do is I can group by events or entities, but in this instance, what I actually want to do is sort for root cause. Now, by sorting by root cause, what this gives me is probably the root cause of the problem. Yeah, so I can see the New Relic API call was probably the first alert, well, was the first event happen in my group, and that's probably where I need to focus my attention to resolve this issue. So what I can do here is say, well, okay, what I want to do is add some comments and say, Mark is investigating this issue. Okay, and add a comment. And then maybe I want to actually make that a high priority, and maybe I want to change that to in progress. Whatever your workflow is, these are, again, fully customizable. And then I can assign it to administrator, but obviously there'll be a list of people or teams in that list there. And again, what I can do is maybe I want to, you know, go and get some further information, enrich that group of events. So I can run a script or do some, you know, proactive activities, or I can raise a ticket. Now, what we're doing here is we're reducing the noise even further, because we're not raising 27 tickets, we're raising one ticket for 27 events that have been grouped together. And again, because we have integrations into the majority of the ticketing systems out there, it's bi-directional. So as we pass an alert or a ticket to your ticketing information, when that is acknowledged or closed off on the ticket system, it then closes back on this screen here. So it's bi-directional if you wanted to. So everything within Splunk is captured and audited. So all the activities you've just seen me do there are being captured here in this this table. So what I can do is every time I'm, you know, past a workflow to my IT operations team, we can track how long it takes to acknowledge or move things around. And it's really really comprehensive. And there's a dashboard to show you the workflow lifespan of that event group. Okay. So just to summarize what we've got here on the top level, and I haven't talked about this, but now I'm going to just cover up the summary dashboard at the very top. This is a summary in the last 24 hours for my mean time to resolve things. So time to fix things is at the moment 762 minutes, which isn't so good. However, in real life, hopefully that's a lot less. My episodes by severity, I can see here where my severities are. So I can see critical, I can see some mediums, I can see some lows. And I can see a lot of them are informational, but I can see, you know, where my severity is for my episodes, my groups. Okay, and I can acknowledge things and see how long it takes to acknowledge. Obviously, in this environment, we haven't acknowledged anything, so that's 0. But the most important thing, which is right bang in the middle of the screen, is the total noise reduction, because ultimately that's what we're trying to show you today. So what we've got here is a noise reduction of 82%, which is excellent. So that's done by the aggregation policy. So hopefully what I've shown you there is some, you know, understanding when you have an outage in your environment, where the business impact is, those service contacts. I've shown you the correlation, the ability to ingest and correlate any data, not just Splunk data, but, you know, third-party data, and correlate that together and produce alerts on the back of that. Then I've shown you the aggregation policy, which is a way of taking those alerts and grouping them together using machine learning to further reduce your noise. And then we walk through the episode review, which is where you see all the episodes or the groups, just to see, you know, what to do with those groups and, you know, the workflow that follows after that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for that presentation and demo. We're about ready to wrap up this Tech Talk, but before we do, I wanted to share some resources available to you to continue your journey. You'll also receive these assets as well as the recorded webinar in a follow-up email. Finally, don't forget that we have an incredible community of Splunk users on our community site. You can search the answers section on ITSI. You can continue the conversation for this talk within the discussion section called Tech Talks. And finally, there's Splunk Ideas, where you can submit new product enhancement or vote for current ideas from other customers. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us today. Please tune back in for future Tech Talks. We're excited to share the series with you.